space. Sarah Briggs is our executive director, and she's going to say a few words.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. To not eat into your time. Thank you everyone so much for coming. You're the first people to come into our new space, so thank you so much. As you can see, it's very much a work in progress project, but I think that that's really exciting because you can just imagine all the possibilities for our creative studios here, and hopefully you're the first of many people to walk through these doors to discover your creativity and learn from artists. This is the first stage of this building project. We're going to be moving here in June, so right around the corner, to start our fine arts programs and summer camps here. So everything that's currently taking place in our Marble Works location, including our offices, we're going to move here in June. That's going to be kicked off with our annual pottery sale on June 7th, so put that in your calendar. And then down the road, we will be building an addition to eventually house our clay program so that we'll have all of our programs back under one roof in one wonderful art center. So please keep an eye on our newsletter and our social media posts for updates about the building progress. Consider making a donation at your discretion. And we also have a few more speakers in this series to start welcoming the community into the building. We have Matt tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. On May 31st, we'll be welcoming Bob Green. He's a potter who specializes in raccoon alternative firing techniques, which are really technical, and the products are gorgeous to look at, but really interesting process to discover. And then Kelly Hickey will be joining us on June 4th. And she'll be talking about textile arts and her large-scale textile artworks that she creates. So if you stick around a little bit afterwards, you're welcome to explore the building. I'll be here. One thing I will note is that there is not currently a banister at the top of the stairs at a landing, so please watch your step and be careful of that. That is going in right away. And thank you so much for coming, and welcome to our new space.
Thank you, Sarah. So we were thinking to have sort of an informal, fun chat with a couple of local artists to get people in the space, and I immediately thought of Matt. I first met Matt when I was looking for a logo for Bud's Beans. Bud Smith and I owned a coffee roasting company for a while, and he did a great logo. But I also learned that he was a mural painter when I was drinking my coffee one day and walked around and saw him painting the Red Clover mural behind County Tire. It's by the train station there. And so I invited him, and thank you, Matt, for coming. And thank you, Drew, for videoing, and thank you, Mike, for the chairs that we're sitting on. So Matt is an award-winning artist and graphic designer, and I'm reading this because he does a lot of things, which I'm not sure what they are. But his portfolio spans branding, wayfinding, murals, illustration, communication design, public art, aesthetic assessment, and graphic facilitation.
To name a few.
To name a few. So tonight we're just talking about his mural paintings, and maybe you could get us started with how do you start a mural, and what you're working on now, and maybe the process of how do you get a mural from what you have in your brain as this great idea to a huge wall or outdoor space.
Yeah, so that's usually the first question is how do you get that artwork up there. So the first thing is just to kind of scope out the project. And that usually means two things, like scoping out the wall and then the artwork itself. So the wall, obviously dimensions are the key element. Just knowing how much square footage we're going to cover, and whether we're covering the whole thing or in parts. Access to the wall is huge. You know, the physical access, like is the ground flat? Is it inside? Is it outside? What direction does it face? And if it's an interior space, what is the access, especially if it's a business, like what are the hours we can be in here? Is there any staff that we need to work around, things like that. And then scoping out the artwork is more about talking with the client and figuring out what, if they have a certain vision, or if they're just looking for me to create something totally my own. This is the county tire wall, and I came around to red clovers to symbolize, the state flower and community, and this flower that sort of gives back to its environment. This wall faces west. It's really large. Trains are about 20 feet away, and it was aged. The paint was really oxidized. There was this kind of like chalky film on there. Scrubbing it off also scrubbed off the paint. So it was a balance of how much to clean it. This photo on the bottom right is what happens when a lot of condensation comes to the wall when the primer's not dry. So there was a lot of factors. This wall is in complete shade and complete sun. So my work day couldn't go past noon really in the summertime. It would just be boiling hot, like too hot to touch almost. But it's not very tall, so a tall step ladder got me to the top of it. The ground is flat, it's a railroad, so it's very easy. This is in Fairleigh, Vermont, and I've been putting murals on the underpass walls. And so this wall has this steep, slippery slope with about a foot to work at the top. This is a community art project, so we're gonna have volunteers working on this, so that was a big factor. The technique also needed a pretty flat wall, and once these bridges were rebuilt, that was the main thing. Is the town planners identified these walls as a place for public art, and the town got a grant to get that public art there, but the town doesn't own the walls. The highway administration owns the walls. So we had to wait for all kinds of approvals and construction that got delayed year after year after year. And it's still going on. But once the bridge decks were rebuilt, they had to rebuild some of the walls, and we ended up with this really chunky, dripping concrete that is fine for construction, but like where the form didn't hit the old wall and the concrete dripped down. And that wasn't there initially when I looked at the wall. So there was some, and then traffic here also, both behind and above, and just the noise factor. So this is Becky's wall at the bookshop, which was the most recent one. So the factors here were it's a really unique, extra long space, and it's a shop. It's like, there's people, and a lot of merchandise that I did not want to get paint on. So this was really a collaboration with the shop that Becky, shortly after Thanksgiving, I guess, she had a need to close for a couple days to do inventory and sort of changeover and things like that. So I was there for 3 intense days, and of course I couldn't finish it that time. It always takes way longer than I expect. So I would come in on Saturday evening at close and set up, and then work for a couple hours, and then work all day Sunday, clean up, do it again the following weekend. So there were multiple setups and cleanups. I was able to take the drop cloths and put them up on top of the bookcase. Becky let me keep the paper on the floor to keep the carpet protected. But staging, I had a friend helping and assisting, and so we had 2 sets of staging, and each one had to be taken down and all the way down into the basement to be stored, all the way down at the back of the store. So that was, I think, 5 trips, if you're feeling really strong, per staging. So I got pretty good at it though. But the wall itself is relatively smooth. There are a few obstructions. That's the other key thing to look at is like what's on the walls or pipes or things like that. I took this picture rail down and ended up having to do a little plaster repair, but mostly it was fine. Once that's done in the proposal, like we have an agreement, a proposal, artwork's all like are going to move ahead with the project. I move into design, and that is usually a combination of things. I try to work by hand still sometimes, but I'm also a graphic designer and I use the computer heavily. So these are some in-process photos from the Clovers and the bookshop. And so I'm using some of the references of my own. That Clover photo on the left there's one I took, a bunch of historical botanical prints. I was drawing on the iPad with that one primarily. And then on the right are, again, sort of lots of trial and error, trying to intertwine oak branches and text into this funky, wide, short space. Then, once design is pretty settled, I'm picking colors and getting the thing mapped to go onto the wall. Once that's all done, it's time to finally get to the wall. And to get the artwork on the wall, there are several methods. I've been using, if I can use projection, I use this projector. It's really handy. It has some limits. If it's outside, I can only do it at night, of course. You can see where the clovers are cut off. There's a certain, and here too, like there's a certain space where the projector just won't reach. So that's done freehand after the fact. Motivating to get to the wall at night is not always the easiest. It's fun once you're there. If you can rally some friends to help, that's even better. So projection is an option. Some muralists kind of think it's cheating, but that is weird. It's just a tool. This is what's called a pounce pattern. So this is a technique from sign making and quilting where you have this tracing wheel. Pass this around if you want. This wheel and a pad full of chalk. So you punch, so this is for lettering where I want it to be perfect. With projection, there's always going to be some distortion. And if the axis is okay, and the scale is okay, I can print out a large scale, a full scale template, and then use this wheel to punch holes in the lines.
What is the chalk for?
And then once the holes are punched in the template, you put that on the wall,
Okay.
and then use this pad and push chalk dust through the holes, and that transfers a dotted line onto the wall. And this big photo on the right, you can see those little tiny dots. It's kind of like chalk line chalk, it's very similar. Comes in a few different colors based on what your wall is going to be. And then at the bookshop again, I ended up combining, I used pouncing for the lettering and then combined that with projection and used the lettering as the registration mark to make sure the projection was like close enough. But what I was projecting was the leaves and the branches, and so if it changed a little bit, it didn't matter. But again, getting that lettering perfect. And this, if I'm doing a logo or something like that, or in the sign making realm, like it should be perfect. This one on the right is from some little sign making sign painting in the Cabot factory. And then two other techniques that I actually have not used too much, or actually at all, is the one very old way is a grid. So you did it when you were a kid and you're like copying a drawing, you put a grid on something and then you use that grid to redo it or make it bigger or smaller. But muralists have developed a new technique called a doodle grid, where you just cover your wall with marks, like whatever you want, doodles. And then you take a picture of that doodled wall and you lay your artwork over it, and that becomes your grid. So it's a much faster way to get the grid on the wall. There's no precision to it. It's just marks. So this one on the left is, you can see it's half painted, and then like the artist will, these aren't mine, the artist will, when they want to paint that dog's eye, they'll look at their artwork and how those doodles line up on the overlay and use that as the grid. This one on the right is using a virtual reality headset, which is a super cool new way to do it, where you are now seeing your artwork projected on the wall and nothing is there. So it's hard to see and explain in one photo, or you really kind of need a video to do it, but it seems like a very cool method, and I'm interested in trying it out. But it's some gear. It's not super expensive. There's the headset. There's one by Meta called Quest, and there's an app called Contour, which seems to be the pair of technologies that seem to be working for people the most. But again, if people think projection is cheating, then But again, it's just a new tool. So that's kind of how to get it on the wall. As far as tools and techniques, I'm not using anything too unusual. I'm painting with acrylic, 100% acrylic latex house paint. I like to use a higher quality brand, but you could use the cheapest stuff. I tend to pick colors that don't cover well, like yellows and reds and things like that, yellow greens. Some of them are super duper thin, so I keep learning that. I keep going back to those colors for some reason. My friend Mike Kinn, who painted the mural on Mary Hogan, he described his technique is to always add a little white to your color, because white covers the best. So even if you have a really bright red, he'll add a little red in there for better coverage. But like that yellow green in the bookshop oak tree, that took, I don't know, there's probably 12 coats on some of those leaves.
I cook and help sales, that's nice.
But even during the process of that one mural, I'll keep adjusting, whereas I went straight to paint initially, and then I added a primer, and then I started tinting those primers, and so it got better.
So you don't prime it first, necessarily?
Not necessarily, no. The county tire wall, I did, so this was the first flower that I transferred, and I ended up priming the shapes. But then what I did was I primed just the large shape. And then once that was dry, it was dry enough that I could paint the large shape in primer, it dry while I did the next one, go back and do the lines on top of that hopefully dry primer. But the bookshop was just, the wall was in good shape. And it's interior, there's not any risk, So priming was simply just to get better coverage, faster. This is a bunch of a toolkit, kind of packing up, ready to go. There's a couple just simple tools that anybody that helps me is like, wow, that's a cool tool. I've never seen that before. And these mixing tools on the side, they go on a drill and they mix your paint way better than a stick ever could. And then down here, these little pouring spouts to keep the rim of the can clean. So those are just two simple little handy things. But other than that, it's levels, chalk, tape, all basic sort of painting tools. There's rosin paper there. This was, again, preparing for bookshops, so it was protecting the floor. Tool bag just for things that might come up. Stands for projector and iPad to document things, kind of stuff. Oh, this tool also is awesome. On the Fairley project, somebody gave me this, and that little scraper can squeeze paint out of the roller. It can clean off your can. It can do all. It can hammer the can closed.
What is that called?
Painter 5-in-1 magic tool. So there you go. Oh, I have discovered recently this brand of brushes called Zebra, Z-I-B-R-A, and they have some really cool shapes, like this square, 1-inch square brush here can hold a chunk of paint. There's smaller versions, there's triangle versions, there's a round one. So this brand Zebra, like, it was an internet ad, Instagram ad, and I was like, is this gimmick? But I bought them, and they're definitely not a gimmick. They are good. They just hold a lot more paint. They're handy. And then again, just basic scaffolding and ladders. I don't recommend doing that. But this was at Flatbread, and there was plenty to hold on to up there, so I felt okay. And this was before I owned my own staging, and my painter friend that I borrowed it from, I asked him if I needed the second level. He's like, sometimes I'll just throw a ladder on top. So I took his guidance. And then I am often painting from the can of colors for a few different reasons. Some might be if it's a community art project, in the future it needs touch-ups. If it's straight from the can color, then anyone can do it. It's also just my design style. I come from the graphic design side, so a solid color is kind of where I'm at. That particular photo is from matching Cabot's logo colors to paint. So again, trying to get it just right. So these are just Pantone and Benjamin Moore Fandex. This material is probably the most unique that I've used. There's a material called mural cloth, and it is a synthetic fabric that can come primed, and you can even get it printed. So this project is a mural in Fairley, the one on the underpass. Actually don't have a completed photo in here, I realized. And so this community art project involved elementary school kids helping me cut out the shapes of these giant leaves, and then a volunteer crew helping me install. And the project is not far away, but far enough away that I couldn't be there doing the work the whole time. So this cloth allows you to work remotely and then stick the mural up like wallpaper, essentially. And Philadelphia, which is like the mural capital of the world, they've been using mural cloth for 20, 30 years. And so it's basically ends up like a layer of paint that you can stick on the wall. And in the Northeast, it lets you extend the season, so you can work in the studio year round, and then go install in the summer. But it also brings, in this particular design at least, if you painted one canvas and it was just a rendered thing, you stuck it up, that was easy. This design was multiple parts. As you can see on that wall is my map and code of all parts and colors. And so I had to track all this stuff in design, in planning, in cutting out the leaves with the kids, and helping volunteers get it on the wall. So there was a lot of keeping track of which, is that G31 or is that S36? Is it color 7? So there was a lot of sort of very meticulous planning in this one. And one of the best techniques is to get friends to help. So my friend Hannah has helped on the entire wall, and then she was paid help on bookshop, so she was even more into it at that time. And she's really small, so she was able to go on top of the bookcase and move around where I would have broken it. And then at Flatbread, the owner, Danielle, and some of her staff helped out a little bit. This was just coming out of COVID. So the restaurant was just doing takeout, but staff was there. And they were able to pitch in a little bit, which is really builds tons of engagement for businesses, having employees and staff there. If you're a school, you have students and teachers involved. Just even if they're filling in this tiny little shape, they become so invested in it. And on the bottom right, that's Kelly Hickey, actually. She helped with County Tire a little bit too. This is where we were projecting the shape, painting the primer, and then coming back to do the other shapes inside of it. And you can see during the night, and again, like as summer wore on, the night would get colder faster, and then one night I was driving home and fog was condensing on the window, and I was like, that primer wasn't dry. And I came back in the morning and it was dripped over. Which is also key to getting that base color right, so I could go back and cover up my drips. That color ended up having to be custom mixed a little bit, but not much. So yeah, I guess I'll start there before I go into any sort of current. But actually, I'll do the current one. There's not that much going on. Some current projects. Fingers crossed, we're going to put a mural on the Middlebury shop at the Frog Hollow Alley. The town is interested in art as a wayfinding element to get people down into Frog Hollow. They often see visitors sort of standing at the top of that alley, like, should I go down there? So this has been actually a collaborative project with Joe Shine at the high school, our teacher, and again, my friend Mike Kin. And so we're gonna add a frog to kind of get them. And then the frogs, his gesture wasn't quite enough to be wayfinding for the town, so we're adding, and there was some suggestion of like, could his arm sort of gesture down, and it kind of felt cheesy. So I'm proposing to add sort of a sign element, and this is a historic building, so this mural will go on panels made of this stuff. But I'm hoping that the frog can be on the panels, but then the sign element could be like lightly painted, so it feels old.
Is this vinyl?
That is, so this material is called aluminum composite material, and it's a sandwich of 2 sheets of aluminum with a plastic core, usually recycled plastic, and it can come pre-painted or primed. It comes in a mirror finish. It comes in all different thicknesses. It's often used in sign making and as building skins. Like a commercial building might have it as these big panels. But you can cut it with I had pieces I'm jumping around. The wing sculpture that I made that was on the town green, all the tiles this is one of those tiles, and I had it CNC cut ahead of time. But you can also cut it with regular woodworking tools, jigsaw and things like that. And it's super lightweight, super durable, super strong. Weather is not going to affect it. So being a historic building, the frog and the branch will be made of a few different, but it comes in a 4x8 sheet. So there's a certain limit to what you can do. So I'll probably one arm and the body will be one panel. The other legs, maybe both of them will be separate. The branch will probably be 2 panels. And then we'll attach that into the mortar joints, and then the brick is left alone. So Catherine and Kelly from Better Middlebury Partnership have been really trying to help us push this through, and it was their initiating the project in the first place. So hopefully that's going to happen. And lately, I've actually been working a couple days a week at Very Merry Theater in the north end of Burlington, and I'm painting sets for them. And so it's sort of like mural painting, but it's a very kind of ephemeral version. So this is a set for Tarzan, and it's 3 5x9 canvas flats with a bunch of 1-inch foam pieces and Luan pieces stuck to it. Those couple at the top, those are clouds on the back from some other show. So I'm constantly sort of going through all the parts that are there and figuring out, I think on the left that was a giant cornstalk. Some of the others were trees. I made some shapes. And then on the back of this is, oh, and this is one of those zebra brushes. This is a little palm-shaped thing that really fits me in nice. So on the back of the lower part, these are 2 4x8 flats with some Luan attached. There's a set for Frog and Toad, which was also dual-purposed for Poe and Friends. Oh, the jungle got used, it's actually getting used tonight for Where the Wild Things Are also. So I did a little sketch for the director, Don, who does most of the construction, and he whipped up, I did a little sketch of Frog's house and Toad's house, and he whipped those together out of, again, scrap, essentially. Frog's house is a little taller. Toad, you see part of it there. His is made of stone. It's kind of squat. And this is the beginning of the chocolate factory for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So this is 20 feet long. The top of that stack is probably 20 feet high. So this will get a base coat of dark blue or something like that, and I'll use a sponge probably to make bricks, and that'll be the exterior scene for Act 1 of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I'll work on the interior very soon. And so that's it. So if anybody wants to go, I can go back to any slides or any questions or, yeah.
I have a question about what you use to apply that paper to.
The cloth.
Cloth.
It's, there's a product from Golden Acrylic called Mural Gel.
Ah.
And it's basically, it's a lot like wallpaper paste
Okay.
or like silicone adhesive.
Mhm.
So it comes in a big bucket and you just brush it, goop it on the wall. This is actually a volunteer that he is retired world traveler. He's kind of a mural hunter, and he was driving by in Fairleigh and saw us doing this work. And I said, "Come back," and he came back 3 days. So really novice, application, and he's like that stuff in the middle there. It needs to be pretty thick because you want to. You essentially, ideally, want to have no air in there. So you want to fill the holes in the wall, and then you squeegee out the bubbles, but you don't squeegee enough that you're taking all the adhesive out. So you leave like 1/8 of an inch or so of adhesive.
So he's putting the sticky stuff on?
Yeah, he's putting the gel on the wall, and then that outline there will be a little leaf shape, I think from a basswood tree, and then it'll get stuck on there.
And then another product question is, what would you use to seal the work, whatever?
Yeah, mostly I don't.
Uh-huh.
It's house paint. It's durable.
Okay.
People aren't sealing their houses.
Uh-huh.
But this fabric one, we did put a fairly cheap acrylic sealer, just a clear acrylic. It didn't have UV inhibitors, so it was more in like the $40-50 a gallon range instead of like the $100 and $200 gallon range that some of the like more mural sealers are. But we wanted to put it in there because you do get there's seams, you know.
Right.
So we wanted a little more insurance on that, but sealers are definitely, and coatings are, I don't want to say controversial, but there's definitely not one opinion about them. They can cause problems. They can yellow. They can, like, what do you do if you now need to go back and repaint? Do you have to remove that coating? Do you have to add in a release coating so that when you do have to get rid of the coating, it comes off? So it's, and then does it add another finish? You know, this stuff only comes in kind of a satin-ish, so it's not quite as flat as we would like, but it was worth the little bit of insurance. And since it's in an underpass, it's not getting really any sun. So UV wasn't a huge concern. But yeah, sealers are, you know, not everybody uses them. But a lot of times if you do, like I've seen in call for art from cities, you know, they'll want an anti-graffiti coating on there or something like that.
Yeah. So when there's a call for art like that, like how many muralists are out there? Like you. Okay.
A lot. And most of those calls are asking for a design, and then they're gonna pick. So it's really not. It's a process that's very unfair to artists. But that's kind of, I don't know, like design and art in general. Like it's kind of expected, like we do the work and then we pick if you want it. Whereas like you hire a plumber, they don't lay out your bathroom and then you choose which one you like best. Like, you pick based on the previous work. So, yeah.
In terms of permanence of the paint, what are the techniques you're talking about last the longest?
Really all of them. I mean, it's like the paint, again, it's really, I use higher quality paint. Like I'll use the Benjamin Moore Aura, which is the top of the line, or Regal, which is the next step down, versus like a, you know, hardware store brand, which I wouldn't trust as much. But, you know, those paints are lasting 5, 10, 15 years. You know,
And
it's going to depend on color also.
The fabric that you pass around and
That'll last forever also.
That what?
It'll last forever, essentially.
The paint will, or just the fabric?
Both. Like once that fabric and the adhesive is on the wall, like it's basically part of the wall. Like to get it off, you would have to sandblast it or grind it off or something like that.
But does the paint itself on that material last longer than on just a flat wall of a typical building material?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think a lot would depend on what's happening with the wall. You know, is there moisture coming through from behind? You know, so yeah.
Basically the same things you're going to deal with on the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the same is true for the the panel that you pass around?
That stuff will last forever. Like the paint on it also will bond. Again, I think a lot comes down to how much prep you do. You know.
But are you using a different paint on a material like that?
No, it's the same latex acrylic. And if you know, it comes primed, as long as you're not like getting greasy hands all over it, it should be a solid bond. I suppose you could rough it up a little bit if you needed to, but it's designed to be painted. Actually, again, like it's.
Does that panel, I forgot what you said, was it the aluminum with the plastics?
Yeah.
Does that come in multiple colors that you might put it
does.
together like a collage or a jigsaw
Yeah.
instead of?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, it comes
Instead
in
of actually
solid
painting.
colors. Yeah.
And then presumably that would fade.
That would be
I don't know whether
like an
that's,
architectural level enamel, baked enamel coating, so that would last like a really long time. So, yeah, they're all, and exposure is going to make some difference. Color choice will make some difference. I think when I got the colors mixed for the clovers, I think it was Countryside, and one of the guys there was like, oh, those yellow, those reds, you know, he was thought they might be a little less stable than some, like the greens, for example. But it's kind of just red and yellow are weird pigments, no matter what material you're using. Clay, glass, paint, whatever.
I have a question that's a little more personal than technical. It's like,
Yeah.
how did you get to this sort of or find this art form that's large and public facing for as your art form? Like what's your path to that?
The most motivation started to come from wanting to get out from behind the computer and outside again. I have always enjoyed making things. You know, I grew up on a little farm where you had to always kind of figure some problem out. And I also have done a lot of, what Jill mentioned, wayfinding, so environmental graphics, so like signs and banners and gateways and design that's out in the landscape. And I just saw murals as this sort of coalescence of all those things. And most of the work has been in Middlebury and all of Vermont and mostly Middlebury, but eventually the plan is to have murals also be a way to work and travel.
So that's your primary focus right now in your artwork is murals?
Probably 50-50. You know, it's always a hustle for everything. So whatever, you know, the other things I'm doing are a graphic design of the climate action plan for the state, or you know, website updates for the film fests, and you know, so it's always a big mix. But yeah, if it could be all murals all the time, I'd be happy with that.
And where did you train for your art?
I went to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and I studied graphic design and illustration.
And were you on the lacrosse team?
No,
They're really
I grew up in central New York, and lacrosse was not a thing at that time. It would have been cool.
and maybe I didn't hear completely, but when you're using that fabric, I can see it's great for laying out and planning, but are you applying the paint before you put it up or after?
Before, yeah. So I was able to work.
So you can paint on a flat surface.
Yeah, on a table, and yeah,
It does sound easier.
it's really good. And you know, we had the kids cut out all the shapes. It didn't really dawn on me when we decided to do that like some of these kids were just learning how to use scissors. So there was some cleanup to do. But they buddied up, and the 6th graders helped the kindergartners and 5th and 2nd. So. But now,
I've
but
seen
they,
that. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say that there was, and then I had, you know, all the designs all mapped out, and so I could talk to the kid and say, you know, if you remember that you painted S12, I'll show you which leaf that is, and then in the artwork, you'll know you painted that leaf.
I was going to say that I saw the finished product and the finished mural for that
Yeah.
somewhere, and I think, was it on your website or Instagram?
Yeah, it's on
In case
Instagram.
other people want to look at it, it's really
Yeah.
stunning.
I do want to show it. You know, a little behind the scenes here for a second. Oh, good. That was easy. Okay, so this was funny too. I was working on the mural for Frog Hollow, Frog and Toad, and Toad Hall sign design. So that was kind of weird. Here is a photo. This is a little process of this fairly mural.
Wow.
So this is us
Yeah, that's really
sticking up all the pieces.
That's wild.
So we would dry fit it, tape it up, and then flip stuff up, put the thing back, and then sort of trim underneath so there wasn't a lot of multiple. So the artwork, there's a lot of parts of each leaf that were hidden. It would be kind of weird for kids to paint these like amorphous semi-leaf shapes, so we ended up printing them out sort of full and then trimming them out as they got covered up.
You can't like layer it.
You can, but I was concerned, like when I got to like 3, 5, 7 layers, I was like, it feels like water's gonna get in there. So there's all parts sort of. So, but here is, this is the finished, oops. I don't know what's going on here. Let's do this another way. This is the wing sculpture that all those tiles are made of composite with reflective vinyl attached. That's not internal light, that's external.
Wow. Where is that one?
That is, it was on the town green for a year. It went to Art Hop, and now it's at Switchback Brewery. Here we go. Let's do it here. Really see the behind the scenes now. Okay, so here's it's finished. So this, I call her the Snow Sister, and there will be
what?
the Snow Sister.
Okay.
There will be another. So she's on one of 4 walls. Later, hopefully late this summer, the mural will finish the rest, and the leaves here from winter into spring will trail off and go onto the other wall that's here. On that opposite wall will be the Green Man, representing summer into fall, and he trails over and it circles all around. So this, you see her when you are on I-91 northbound, you can get off at Fairleigh, and then southbound you'll see the Green Man. And I started the idea, so this was a call to artists, and one of the concepts I thought initially was trolls, because it's under a bridge. But trolls are kind of either really goofy or really creepy to most people. So then I somehow came around to the Green Man, this architectural feature that you see on a lot of buildings. Like, it's a guy with leaves instead of a beard and hair. And there was a version called the grotesque, where there's actually like vines like coming out of their nose and ears and things. You'll see it as like a garden ornament also. So it's this symbol that's been in tons of mythologies for so long, but there was no female version. All the female versions were like the wicked Snow Queen or like Wicked Witch. So, so I made my own. But I came around to the Green Man because, like, okay, this is architecture in a way. So, and I'm putting something on it. So, let's see if I can find. I should be able to find some. When we got a lot of positive feedback from drivers, but when truckers were approving and honked their horns under the bridge, that was a lot. Here's a close-up. Here's some little bubbles and seams that like were kind of an issue. So here's a little bubble. We would slice it open, maybe jam some more adhesive in there, close it back up.
How did you get started with murals? Did you just go for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I was doing the logo design for County Tire at the time, and we've been clients or customers for them for years. And we were presenting the final draft logo, I think, and the railroad had just cleared the sort of scrappy woods that were behind that building. And Steve, one of the owners, was like, "Our building's really, really ugly. Do you know anybody that can paint a mural?"
That was your first one?
Yeah.
That was only a couple of years ago,
Oh wait,
right?
was Flatbread first? Flatbread might have been before that. And that also was like something, Danielle's a friend and a client for many years, and it's been something we've talked about a long time. That actually was going to be on a different wall with a different concept. I had this sort of like goddess figure that was going to be like offering fire for food, or to cook food, and I delayed and things happened, and it was COVID, and like there was a lot like me dragging my feet essentially. And then Will Casso from Juniper Creatives, another local artist, Danielle told me that she was like, "Will's gonna paint something on the outside," and I just knew instantly that he was gonna paint some kind of like harvest goddess figure. I was like, damn, I have to change my idea. And I had this campfire idea initially, but I was kind of scared of it actually, because fire's kind of hard to represent, and I just didn't want it to come off cheesy. So I shied away from it and ended up coming back to it around anyway.
It came out beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
People coming by that on the train must just go, what was that?
So there are so many canvases in that area. It would be great to cover that whole section with tons of murals. Like the grain silos, the back of Arcade Miles. There are so many blank spaces in that area.
So is this a community project?
Fairleigh was, yeah.
Yeah, so the town or?
The Fairleigh Community Arts got a grant from Vermont Arts Council,
Okay.
the Animated Infrastructure Program, and then put out Call to Artists.
Okay.
And I won.
And then you had volunteers come,
Yeah, we had
kids
a
help?
very dedicated group of volunteers from their arts organization. Probably about 3 or 4 that have been there the whole time.
Wow.
The fire company came and helped clean the wall.
That's awesome.
We took all these sandbags, and so to create this work surface, like that was part of the fabric idea too, is that we couldn't get elders and kids up there working. So again, fabric lets that happen at the school and in the town hall and things like that. Summer campers helped. But then the wall needed to be prepped, so volunteers were out there scrubbing it down, and the fire company came and hosed it off, and volunteers filled hundreds of sandbags. So we started thinking like, oh, could we build a platform, like some kind of staging? Like, it gets expensive and complicated. And so then I was like, what if we just piled sandbags at the top of the slope and put a piece of plywood there? It worked. But it's a lot of sandbags.
Yeah.
So there's some
Oh, look at
close-ups.
that.
So
Did the fabric work as a good solution for the lumpy parts of the wall, or was that
it did.
also
So
an issue?
those parts from that first photo, that was discovered like pretty shortly before installation time.
Oh, okay.
And so some of the volunteers went out and did a little skim coating of concrete and sort of smoothed out the gap, because it was just going to be too much to.
Yeah.
You can put it on like a brick wall. You could probably do. There's several in Rutland that
Okay.
are on fabric. And here's me in a rookie way using spray paint, which I never do. I'm trying to find.
So when you travel, are you sort of drawn to murals wherever you go?
Yeah, I was just in Montreal, and there are murals all over that city.
Is there
It's-
some, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if there's somebody's artwork who really inspires you.
I was just gonna say there's a woman named Ola from Montreal. She's amazing. And yeah, there's another, I forget his name, but there's one where he uses objects like found, so it's somewhere between mural and sculpture, like a low relief. So he'll use like junk to make a mouse face, things like that. So, just trying to find. This is just from. It's what also I find cool about murals is you're in this other person's space or community space for a while, so you're like learning the town and like getting the key to the shop, and like there's a lot of trust that's there, not just for the artwork but just the access. Like,
How long did that process take?
installation was like 4 days, 3.5 days. Yeah, it was really fast, relatively fast. The bookshop took 3 days intensively, and then every weekend for a month. So 7 days, I guess, total, 9, somewhere in that range. I'm trying to find the other half of the Snow Sisters, her counterpart, so you can see it. What's going on?
Is it done, the other half?
The parts are mostly painted. I still have some stuff to do. Okay, so there he is. And he actually went through several iterations. When I look back to the first drawings, it definitely was a little creepier. Like the leaves were like closer in on his brows and his cheeks, and like there was more, and it was just so like just based on feedback, public feedback, and the group, just trying to like open them up and give them a little more smile. And, so someone said he looks like he just told a joke, which I was like, that's good.
He just told me.
Oh.
So yeah. And see if I can find a flatbread photo. I realized I didn't put much of the flatbread one in here. These are from the.
Wow.
That was just after finishing it, before moving back in. And this really transformed that space.
Yeah.
You know, we have feedback from Danielle saying like staff wouldn't want to offer a table on that side of the restaurant initially because it was just cold and it's sterile and dark. And so by bringing fire over there, it really literally warmed the space up. So, yeah, murals are transformative. It's the space and the experience.
Are there any other questions?
If I wanted to buy some of that cloth,
Yeah.
slap it all over my house.
Yeah.
What is it called?
It's called Mural Cloth. There's a brand name called Polytab, but there's a company called Mural Provisions in Philadelphia, and that's who I worked with. And this guy Ben Volta, who's an artist, and he's been working with Mural Arts in Philly for quite a long time, producing, like helping them with the materials to get things going. So yeah.
And Matt has some cards over on the table if you want his business card. And hopefully you'll do something here, Matt.
Yeah.
In the future.
I'd love to, yeah. There's a lot of blank walls around.
There are.
I hope you like plants, because that's usually where I go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming.